right, we are live. Let's get started with better reviews. So, if anyone who's watching, a couple episodes ago, we talked about better reviews, the kind of idea, business that we want to run. So Connor, give us the update. For anyone who isn't familiar, we want to help restaurants get better reviews online, essentially.
Better and more. Better and more
Better and
reviews.
more. Yes.
Yeah, so I started cold calling restaurants this week. Basically, I just got a list of local restaurants that kind of fit the criteria. So, like under 4.5 stars or under like 75 reviews. Started calling. The tough part is like I'm calling like the main line, right? So like I'm literally just calling the restaurant. So, the right person is never answering, and it's always like an awkward start to the call. It's like, hey, can I speak to a manager or owner? And they're like, oh yeah, why? It's like it's like tough, it's like tough to explain to a hostess in like a short amount of time. And then like and the tough thing is if I'm honest, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm starting a business and like I want to see if it's something that they would find useful. They're probably not going to hand the phone off to the manager. So that's kind of what I experienced quickly. Like the hostess would be like, oh, now's not a good time. That happened a couple times. When I did get handed off, manager would like think I'm a customer and be like, hey, how can I help you? And as soon as I realized I was not a customer, they were like, yeah, not interested, and would just like hang up. Wow. So that was my experience. It was like very, every call was similar. And so I kind of pivoted and I started sending out emails, which already has been more successful.
Hold on. Let's go back to the call. So when you were calling, when you got on the phone with the manager, what was the first thing you said?
Yeah, I had like a little, like I wouldn't go word by word, but yeah, I had like a pretty general frame. So I'd be like, hey, this is Connor. I know you weren't expecting my call. Do you have a quick minute? Usually they'd be like, sure. Like, awesome. Well, hey, look, my colleague and I were in the process.
You know the legendary phrase, right? Like, is now a bad time. That's what you're supposed to always say. Is now a bad time.
Is now a bad time?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
You got to use like the negatively phrased.
You're right.
They want to say.
You're right. Poor for me. I got to change that. That's hilarious. Yeah, good call out. So yeah, after that, I just go into, hey, my colleague and I, we're in the process of launching a business where we really just help, restaurants get more and better reviews. But before we launch, I just wanted to call some local restaurants that I appreciate and get some feedback on the idea. I've been speaking with some other local restaurant owners. I've kind of gotten the sense that reviews are obviously, really important to their business, but oftentimes the owner or the manager don't necessarily have time to manage that side of the business. Is that something that you experience? So that's my opening line. I had a couple like actual conversations where like people would actually talk to me. Yeah. Also like kind of negative. Like the two people I talked to were general managers and they were like, oh, like, yeah, they were like, that's my job. Like that's what I do. Which is like, kind of fair. Like why would the general manager want to like hire me? Like it's not them who would want to hire me, it's the owner. And at that point, like the conversation is pointless. So yeah, that was tough, like a little bit deflating, but kind of expected, to be honest. And so I reverted to emails. I did a good amount of email writing at my last company. I've read a lot about email writing and just like copywriting in general. So I'm like, hey, this is like a good opportunity to send some emails. So I started sending out emails. The way I would get emails was I would go to like the contact me section on their website if they had it. And even if they don't have it, there's almost always a form you can fill out that's like name, email address, phone number, and then just like, type in whatever you want.
And did all the restaurants have websites?
Yep. All of them have websites. Yeah. Because the way I found them was through Yelp, right? Mm-hmm. And the way I narrowed them down was going through their website. So this narrow list, I had made sure they all have websites. So yeah, I started sending emails. I got a couple responses yesterday.
Okay.
One was actually, before I tell you my response, I'll tell you what I wrote. And keep in mind, this is on a general form, so I'm not reaching out to someone directly. This is just like general, I don't know who it's going to. So I said, hello, first off, I just want to say you have the best mac and cheese I've ever had. The chicken and bacon is a nice touch. That's like one of the menu items.
Okay.
Is that bad? Like I've never actually been there, so I don't know if that's like a bad thing, but.
No, I think it's a good intro.
Okay.
As long as they have mac and cheese on the menu.
No, I would pick out a specific menu item and call it out. I said, reaching out because I'm in the process of launching a business that helps restaurants like Jenny's Kitchen get more and better reviews. But before I launch, I'm reaching out to owners and managers of local restaurants to get some feedback. Any is appreciated. And I said, as an owner or manager, I know you have a lot on your plate and may not have time to focus on reviews. However, online reviews play a crucial role in a restaurant's success as more and more customers rely on them to make dining decisions. I've spoken with some other, local owners, and I get the sense that they're aware of the importance of reviews, but don't have the time or energy to focus on that aspect of the business. Is this something that rings true with you? Would it be useful to have someone like myself come in and handle that side of the business? As I mentioned, at this point, this is just an idea, and I'm simply looking for feedback. Thanks. So I got two responses. One said, sure, I'd be happy to chat. Here's my cell.
Wow.
That was the owner. So that's good.
Nice.
Other one said, thanks for the high marks on the bacon sandwich. Not sure what you mean by handle reviews. Which is interesting. I thought I made it somewhat, pretty clear.
Yeah, that's typical. I am 65 and over, and you need to make something very clear to me.
So first off, what did you think of that email?
I think it's, to be honest, I would have taken a completely different approach. I would have said, hey, do you struggle with reviews at all? Is our reviews an issue that is front of mind to you? Is this something that you want to improve? Question mark, question mark. Like, I would just ask them that, get them thinking, like, either yes or no. And if, the one that we want to target is like, yes, okay, like this is an issue. And then we go, okay, I'm working on a business idea. What would you want me to help you with? Or something like that. Like, I would go way more in terms of like asking questions. I would think I wouldn't have said like one thing about myself, about ourselves. So I'd be curious to A/B test. So actually what we can do is, now that we're sending emails, I can send some too. So I can draw one up. And just, can you send me whatever ones we haven't emailed yet?
Yeah. Okay, let's dive into the cigarette ads. Is that cool with you?
Okay, cigarette ads. And this is something we've talked about previously on the podcast, right?
Have we?
In a slightly different way than I'm sure you have, but if you remember the story from one of the books where people were trying to sell more cigarettes, and what they did in order to sell to women, because it was previously a men kind of only thing, they said, hey, women, if you're trying to lose weight, skip dessert, have a cigarette instead. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Talking about this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Genius. Did you get that? Did you get that from Persuasion?
Yep. Yeah, one of those kind of books. Yeah.
One of those? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in the process of reading Persuasion right now.
Nice.
I also got this from there,
Cool.
but a bit different. This one's really interesting. So this is kind of, about, I'm kind of getting into the psychology of marketing and sales, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So this is one of the stories. So 1970, Congress passed an act, banning all cigarette commercials from being broadcasted on television in an effort to reduce smoking, right? That was the goal. Kind of strange though, the people who kind of like pushed this act to be passed were the people in the cigarette industry, like tobacco makers. So the ban ended up having an opposite effect. Cigarette consumption actually began to increase. So over the next 5 years, there's an average of a 2.5% increase in cigarette sales every year, which is like that's a big deal. Like that's a lot of money.
Yeah, hold on. Just before you give us any more details, I just want to pause and say, what the heck are the people in government doing? If they are getting backing from the tobacco industry themselves, there is obviously some other kind of play going on here. So this is pretty crazy. I'd love to know who was making this decision, and I'm sure there was some charitable donations going on in the background.
Oh, absolutely. It's actually just hilarious. Like, it's such a good scam. Like, whoever pulled this off, I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. They used Persuasion. No, it's hilarious. It sounded, by the way the book, and I read some articles on it, the way they made it sound was like they weren't very direct in like, oh, hey, like, we want to pass this act. It was more like very subtle, like obviously no one just sent an email and was like, hi, writing from Camel, we want to ban all cigarette ads. Like, not quite how it worked. So yeah, super interesting. They started to kind of like ask why, like dive into why. So here's what was found out. Before the act was passed, there was like a major regulation regarding cigarette commercials, and this was called the Fairness Doctrine. The Fairness Doctrine basically stated that for every cigarette commercial that airs, someone who had the opposing view, so like an anti-cigarette company or even just a singular person, had the right to publish a commercial for free. So obviously, the big anti-cigarette companies at the time, every commercial that aired, they would air a commercial saying not to smoke cigarettes and why.
Yep.
Um, Fast forward to like modern knowledge, the counter argument is always much stronger than the first argument, and this is true like
Really?
across literally anything. Yes,
Really?
and
Wow.
so yeah, I think like huge takeaway from that is like I think there's a couple takeaways. One, if you're in an argument, like take the stance of the counter argument, like let the other person go first. But then there's also the use case in sales where I think you can literally like, and this is my takeaway. I think you can
Hmm.
literally start off a conversation like, hey, these people would say this is true. This other company, this other brand says that they do this or that they do this better than us.
Uh,
And this is their case. Let me tell you
yeah.
why that's not true, right? Like frame it, like
Yeah.
like make a counter argument to yourself.
Yep.
So yeah, I thought that was crazy interesting because yeah, during these commercials, they had about like around a 2% decrease every year that these commercials
Wow.
were airing. They thought it was just because like, oh, the cigarette industry is just dying, like people are aware of the health risks. Nope, it was because they were airing commercials, which is
Huh.
so ironic.
I really like this because it's like, um, whenever someone presents their first view, then what you can do if you're going against that, if you're presenting the counter argument, all you have to do is pick out the big, obvious like negative side effects or the big counter arguments towards that specific argument. And it's
Yep.
really difficult for someone to change their position like in the middle if they're like, okay, yeah, you're right, like, okay, that was a bad idea, and then they switch to something else. It kind of makes them look weak and like they don't really have a stance, and so they're kind of stuck. You're right. I really like this. I think you could also do it where I think last week we talked about how I was trying to get an offer, right? I wanted to negotiate commission with my boss, and I went first, and I shouldn't have, but it's like the same idea. Like the other person should always go first. You always want to hear their argument first, right? Like let the other, what's the phrase? Like don't show your hand. Like let the other person
Yeah.
show their,
Yep.
yeah, like in cards or something like that.
Yeah. Show
So
your cards. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, this is really good. I love your insight on connection to sales too.
Yep. Yep. Dude, I think that's that whole book, Persuasion, and just like psychology books in general. I think pretty much every principle can be applied to sales.
Yep.
And this is actually something that I've been thinking a lot about recently. Is I personally feel like like sales tactics and like the sales industry as a whole is very outdated. There's not a lot of like technology behind it. There doesn't seem to be a ton of psychology. It just seems
Yeah.
to be like people like just like pass down traditions and also like some people who A and B test ideas. But as far as like the human psychology, which I think
Yep.
should be the forefront of any sales effort, is
Yep.
you like leveraging that to impact the person you're trying to sell to. I feel
Yep.
like it's really lacking. There doesn't seem to be much explanation of of like those types of sales
Mm-hmm.
tactics. And so one thing that really intrigues me about going into sales is I think there's an opportunity to stand out and like develop some new tactics through things like this.
All right. So I want to talk about the makers versus managers schedule. Um,
Okay.
okay. So this is one of Paul Graham's blogs. And for anyone who doesn't know, can you kind of give a summary of Paul Graham?
Uh, I don't have a super good understanding of Paul Graham, but I know Paul Graham has written thousands of essays over his career. I think he's probably the best writer I've ever read. Uh, that's all I
Yeah,
know.
okay. Let me kind of give a summary. So Y Combinator, it's like the biggest startup, kind of the original startup accelerator in the US. And so he created that, which is pretty crazy. So he's incredibly rich, beyond what you could ever need. And he's everyone kind of looks up to him like the father of a lot of startups. And so yeah, he has a ton of blogs, and a lot of them are really well read. And so there's this one called The Maker's Schedule versus the Manager's Schedule. And just to summarize it, he's basically saying like, hey, the manager's schedule is your typical, what people do, where they block off their calendar in 1 hour blocks, or, maybe if you're super cool, you're doing 20-minute blocks or something like that. But the maker's schedule, and he specifically targets this towards like programmers or, people who are more tech oriented, who are doing like deep work. Um, the maker's schedule is in like 6 hour blocks, and so it's
Wow.
like half a day. And the reason why is because coding is time intensive, and once you get going, you want to keep going and kind of like
Yep.
I don't know, go down that there's a word for it, but like the focus, just have that
Yep.
focus. And so he's saying, what you really need to do is minimize the repetitive meetings, and especially if you're on a team where you're working with both of these kind of people, or if you're one working with the other, what you want to do is have like one afternoon a week where you just pack all of your meetings into. And in this way, it's like a whole 6 hour period. It works for both sides.
Yep.
Um, but I was curious if you've ever kind of thought about this. Like, I've never considered this, that someone, some people don't really run on the typical like 1 hour calendar schedule.
No, 6 hours is pretty crazy. Like that's intense. In fact,
Hmm.
I don't. I personally don't think I could like truly focus for 6 hours. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, with that being said, I do like the idea of like a 6 hour. Like if you have, yeah, if you're coding and like that's your main focus, then yeah, I think a 6 hour time block is great. Maybe throw in like a couple like 15-minute breaks. Um, yeah, I think it's an interesting idea.
Hmm. Okay, let's go right into the next thing. So mistakes doc. Have I talked to you about this document that I have with like a list of my mistakes?
No, but hang on. Before we get into that,
Yeah.
on that makers versus manager schedule. So it's
Yeah.
funny. Do you know David Huberman? Huberman? I think it's David Huberman, the Huberman Lab.
Andrew?
Is it Andrew?
Yeah,
Okay.
Andrew.
Yeah. Yeah, he has that podcast. So I've been
Yeah.
I've been reading through some of his blogs, more like listening to his podcasts to like find ways to like naturally just improve like my concentration and focus and like also
Yep.
just alertness. In the podcast, one of the things he touches on is like schedule and like optimized human focus time. And he was saying that there's kind of like different tiers of focus. Like, you've got your like, just kind of like mind numbing, like maybe like responding to a couple emails or like, yeah, I don't know, responding to emails. Then you're like
Yep.
mid level, like maybe you're punching some numbers, like you need to focus, but like nothing crazy. Then you've got your
Right.
like legit work where you're like hyper focused. And he was saying that humans really can only handle like a maximum. Well, first of all, optimized time schedule to focus is 90 minutes, like
Yep.
to the dot.
Yep. Yep.
Like
Yep.
90 minutes is optimized, the optimal amount of time for humans to focus. And the typical human has a maximum of like three 90-minute sessions a day where they can hyper focus, which kind of I don't know, that kind of blows my mind. I
Hmm.
would have thought a lot more, to be honest. But even he was saying, he's like, yeah, I cannot do more than three separate blocks of 90 minutes of like intense focus. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I remember I listened to that episode a while ago, and I've been trying to optimize my time more for 90-minute blocks. I actually did one today, which is nice. And
Nice.
I realized like towards the end of the 90 minutes, I was kind of like, like I do need a little bit of a break. Like I just wanted to keep going, I want to keep my momentum, but no, I totally felt like I need a break. So yeah, I agree. Have you learned anything else interesting about focus from Dr. Huberman?
Yeah, he's got some interesting takes. Um, I think just like for me, like personally, we've touched on this last podcast, but I'm just trying to get in the habit of getting like more of like the actual like physical things that like I need throughout my day. So like more water, more sunlight, and then I've also been doing like cold exposure in the mornings,
Yeah.
like decreasing screen time, like not going on the phone when I'm in the bathroom, or like not opening anything like during like uh just kind of like that in between time, like not going on my phone.
Hmm.
So that's all been really helpful. And then he also goes into like supplements a lot. Um, I took
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I have a family friend who is like pretty in like that supplement space, or like has done a lot of research. She's like an executive, like really
Really?
high
Wow.
functioning, like really smart woman.
Yeah.
And I house it for them, and they have like a massive supplements cabinet. And I was like,
Wow.
what is all this? So I called her this past week, asked her about it. I went over to their house, and she gave me some supplements to try for like improved clarity and focus. And yeah, I think it's going to be a game changer. I did one day, and I've now ordered like the three separate supplements she gave me.
Wow.
Um, yeah, that all kind of stemmed from the podcast, like getting that side of things.
So did you feel more focused from just one day of taking these supplements?
Yeah, like literally one day, like literally
And
within like 30 minutes of taking them.
what were they?
Hang on, let me pull up an exact photo. So one of them was like a mix of 10 like different like mushroom type supplements. I think like
Okay.
60% of it is like lion's mane. Then you've
Oh
got
yeah.
like the chaga and all the other stuff.
Reishi and all
So
that stuff, yeah.
yeah, it's like a mushroom complex. The other one this is literally like 150 separate like minerals that like I don't know the science behind it, but our
Hmm.
body needs, but we don't really get a lot of based on like our like food system. And then the last one, it's just like a blend of like it says B minus vitamins.
Hmm.
Also, I don't know the science behind it, but I'll send them to you if you're interested.
So yeah, so you take them in the morning?
Yep. So I took most of them in the morning. One of the mushroom ones are supposed to be like the most like effective, and so
Okay.
I feel myself kind of have like a decrease like in the afternoon. Like I hit 2 o'clock and like I could take a nap every day,
Yep.
and so I saved one of them for that like 2 o'clock time.
Okay.
Um, I didn't find it as effective in the afternoon, probably because I just took one, whereas I had took like 5 tablets in the morning.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, the morning was really effective.
And kind of like describe for me what the feeling is. Like you just are focused more. You said you're in improved clarity. Like what do you actually mean?
Okay, so if I sit down right now and I start writing a paper,
Okay.
I'm gonna be kind of all over the place. I feel like I'll be writing, and then like something will pop in my head, and I'm like, oh, I gotta Google that. And then like as I'm googling something, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I gotta Google that. I gotta Google that. And then like I like will lose my I personally I lose my train of thought like fairly often. Like I'll literally be
Hmm.
like thinking about something, about to do something, and I just completely forget what I'm gonna do. And I
Yep.
feel like those things were like totally mitigated. So like that morning, I had some homework I had to do, like writing this paper on like Urban Outfitters. So I just felt like I didn't find myself distracted like hardly at all. So that was the biggest difference for me.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, definitely send those over. I'm curious to look at them. I've heard
Yep.
about the mushroom things for a couple of years. I actually have two like medium-sized bags of two different powders, but they taste pretty weird, and so I only use them in smoothies. I don't have smoothies too often. So,
Mm,
but yeah, I've heard a ton. Like my favorite is Model Health Show podcast.
okay.
I think I might have mentioned that before.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's like the guy that originally over COVID I read his book about sleep, and that got me into the whole space of like, oh, I got to be healthier and this, and all this kind of stuff.
Totally. Totally.
Okay, cool.
Has a powder been effective for you?
I mean, I hadn't been using it for anything specific, just kind of general
Okay.
health. But again, I haven't
Yeah.
taken it that much, so
Yep.
I
Okay.
can't speak to that.
Sure.
What I did want to talk about is I want to kind of tie this into focus on more of like a meta level. So this is focus in like daily tasks, right, that we're talking about now. But I want to talk
Okay.
about like life focus. Like, what do you overall, how are you spending your time and all this kind of stuff? I was talking with Timic this week and we came up with some really interesting things. Like we were both talking about ways that we can optimize our time and spend more time doing the things that we want to do and also more time spending the high spending more time doing the high value activities. So,
Yep.
like creatively thinking about ways to get more sales is going to be a lot better than scheduling meetings, and doing all this like routine stuff that anyone can do with a brain and a computer, right? And
Mm.
so we talked a little bit about like outsourcing and VAs, but I guess I'm curious, is it a thought that comes into your head like, oh man, like I wish I didn't have to do this. Like this is totally something that someone else could do for me. Because until recently, this hadn't really been a thought for me.
No, I don't feel like that's much of a thought for me, to be honest.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought, and I think um like it's really hard to decide what things matter in life. Like really, like what do you want to focus on? And we came up
Yeah.
with a couple different ways to think about it. So you can do like um I really like the Warren Buffett way of thinking about this, where he's like, look, take a pen and paper and write down your top 25 career goals. Like just keep going until you get 25. And then once you get 25, pick your five favorite and cross off all the rest. And then those 20 things that you just crossed off, not only are you not going to do them, you're going to actively not do them, right? So you're
Mm.
going to make sure that you don't do anything that is, specifically towards those goals. You're only going to do things that get you
Yep.
towards the top five goals. And so that might work well for a career, but you can do it in the same way with life. Like, hey, like these are the five things that really matter in life, and these are, I only want to do things that go into this category. But then we kind of got into this discussion where we're like, Timik was asking me like, what are your thoughts on if it's Friday night and I can spend another hour doing work, or I can watch, or another 2 hours doing work, or I can watch a movie with my girlfriend. Like, how do you categorize that? Because theoretically, or technically, this movie's I'm not really talking to my girlfriend, and so we're not really improving our relationship. But at the same time, I do enjoy a movie once in a while, but it's not getting me closer to any of my goals. And it's like, okay, well, how much leeway do you want to give yourself? And I guess I'm just kind of talking here. I'm saying a ton of things, so you can pick out what you like. But my kind of thought was like, hey, there's this scale, and on one side there's the billionaire who has one focus, literally one, and will sacrifice anything in his life, maybe even his life, to get it. And these are the guys who, build billion-dollar companies and don't have a family, and work till the day they die and all this kind of stuff. And maybe some of them do have families. Like there's a lot of different types, but that's like the on the one end, and on the other end are the people who are optimizing towards complete happiness and are not, it's all about happiness today and whatever comes tomorrow, I'm just gonna make the best of it. And then there's this middle, and there's kind of this scale, and it's like, where do you want to keep your life? And I think for me, like Alex Hormozy, one of the things that he says is, he's in his 30s, and he's like, people ask me like, hey, something like, what do I want the most? Like, what is my biggest desire? And he's like, dude, all I want is to go back and be 20 again. Like, I don't care about the money. I would trade all of the money to go back and be 20 again. And I was like, wow, that's really deep, because he struggled really, really hard, and fought a lot of battles to get where he is. And all he wants to do is be younger. And he's not even old. He's 30, so that's kind of crazy. And I guess for me, to answer my own question, like, a life without at least a little bit of enjoyment to me isn't worth it. Like to sacrifice everything just to have a good life when you're 30, I don't think that's worth it. I think everyone has their own specific answer, but for me, maybe like 1 year of sacrifice would be worth it, or like sacrificing 90% of your time when really I only want to sacrifice 70% of my time. Like there's a ton of different ways, and you can get really specific about it. But anything about my little rant that you want to pull out?
Dude, I feel like you're just like read my mind. Like I think about this. I feel like I spent a lot of time thinking about this. In fact, it's almost like it almost feels like a conviction. Like I always like feel guilty about where I'm at. Like it's like this constant like pull of like what side am I trying to please? And I think it's something that like always changes. Like my idea of this has certainly changed over the past couple of years, over the past 6 months, honestly. Like I feel like I'm constantly changing. I think personally, like I've fallen on the side lately. I've fallen on the side of more like optimizing towards like happiness. Like I used to feel like, oh, like I want to be like crazy rich and like be people that like be someone that people are jealous of. That's more of like a pride thing. I think, at least like for my case, and that's like, I feel like I've hit this point where I'm like, that is ridiculous. Like, what a dumb motive. Like, who cares? And part of like that mindset has shifted because of Alex Hormozy. Like, one of the things he always talks about is like, hey, guess what? Like, you're gonna die, and literally no one cares. Like, no one will know who you are. No one's gonna care who you are. So like, forget about pleasing and like being impressive to those people around you. And that kind of hit home because I felt like my motive for pretty much everything was to like be impressive or and that's how my future goals were aligned.
Okay,
and
I have two can I jump in real quick? I have two things. One is I saw there was some study where people who think about death more often are happier, which is pretty interesting. And then the second is, do you feel like losing that motivation kind of like is negative in some way? Like maybe you don't want it for your whole life, but it gives you a lot of value for the short term, let's say a couple of years, to strive and like really work hard for your goals. Do you feel like you're losing anything by kind of relaxing and just being like, oh, I'm just gonna be happy? Do you feel like you're losing anything?
Dude, 100%. Yes. So that is like the dilemma for me. Like that's that constant like tug and pull. And don't get me wrong, like I think I still live a life where like I'm like, yeah, I'm for sure going to sacrifice the next few years, but I'm not going to sacrifice 100 hours a week and like hurt my relationships. Like those things are way more important to me than any amount of money I'm going to make in the future. And like as far as time goes, like like our 20s are going to fly by, and you can never get that back. And life is really short. Like when I think about life, like I see like 60 being the point of like downhill, where like really downhill, where it's like, I can't be that active. I can't go really travel the world. I can't do dope stuff. Like I can't do the stuff that like right now I think is awesome. So why would I work hard so that I can enjoy when I'm 60? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And so
I hear you. I guess maybe one thing to think about is don't. You need to dispel that notion as soon as you possibly can because of two things. One, if you plan in your head to be old and decrepit at 60, I promise you will be, okay? But if you tell yourself I'm going to be fitter than a 30-year-old until the day that I'm 80, then you have a much higher chance. I think you'll take better care of yourself. Also, I think there's a mental aspect to it. And then the third thing is like medicine's going to get way better. And so I don't know what the exact numbers are, but we're projected to live a lot longer than like our grandparents right now. So
Yeah,
there's a couple things. But yeah, I hear you. Any other
that's a good
thoughts on
take.
this?
Yeah, where do you think you stand on that line?
That's a good question. Um, I feel like 2 months ago I was going all towards I don't think I'm ever in the billionaire range, like, sacrifice everything.
Yeah.
For sure not. But I was leaning towards the more, okay, let's sacrifice things, let's get stuff done. And then I kind of realized like that's just leading me towards a path where I'm busy, but I'm not productive, if you know what I mean.
Mm,
Like you have all this time scheduled out, and I think that's super important to be aware of as well. Like we can talk about that for a little bit if you want. Like, yeah, you can fill your day with stuff, but I think this is why I started doing one big thing. Like this is what Sean, for My First Million is all about. Like every day, there's probably only one thing that you need to do, maybe two on some days, but really it's just one thing.
yep.
And you would surprise yourself. If you look back and say, okay, this is the one thing I need to do, it's much harder than you think to do that one big thing each day.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess I also have this part of me where I always feel like I'm never doing enough. And so, like, if
Yep.
I literally have two jobs in school and I'm feeling like I'm not doing enough. Like the minute that I have an hour of free time, I'm like, wow, like what am I doing with my life? Like
Like,
I might
yeah.
as well, like, and so I don't know. I kind of like that because it's always motivation and it keeps me on track. But at other times, it's like, dude, like it's okay to chill out a little bit, focus on these
Yep.
things. And I guess the reason I don't like that thought in my head as much is because it's pushing me to being busy instead of, getting things done. And so I guess
Yep.
I need to like reconcile all of my thoughts with each other. Just be like, hey guys, let's get on the same team and let's work towards these goals. But it's okay to whatever. I don't know. Yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah. Dude, I think that's good. I think like yeah, I feel the same way. And I find that yeah, even though that sense of like, oh, I'm not doing enough is like very motivational, at the same time, I feel like it kind of motivates me to do the wrong things. It's like, oh, I just need to fill this time with something that's like productive. So
Yep.
I'm gonna go and scroll the internet and look for like read through business journals. Like that's actually not productive at all. And everything I read is just reaffirming what I already know. And that's
Yep.
a total waste of time. Like
Hmm.
my time would be much better spent hanging out with friends or hanging out with my girlfriend or just relaxing. Like, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I think you gotta, like you said, I think you nailed it on the head. Like, are you being busy or are you being productive? Like, don't
Yeah.
waste time being busy.
Right. I guess this just came into my head. I think you hear a lot like the Alex Hormozy, Akshay, this kid that we follow on Twitter. They talk about like skimming most of the books that they read, and I think that's actually a really important insight that I hadn't thought about. And so actually, I just finished this book, and I read it way faster than I ever would have thought, and it's like 300 pages long. And what I realized is like, hey, okay, I realized at the beginning and the end of each chapter, there's like a summary, and I decided to skip through that. I'm like, theoretically, if I read this, it's gonna help me remember it more. But I'm gonna keep this book, and if I ever need something, I'm just literally gonna open it and go to it, and that helped me read it way faster. And so what I was thinking is, why did no one ever teach us like how to actually look for valuable information? I think like
Mm,
maybe you were the same way in elementary school. We were always taught like um, how to check if a website is reliable or not. What I need
yeah,
is once you find that reliable website, how to check whether it's useful information or not. Like I wanna skim reading course. You know what I mean? Not a speed
yeah,
reading, just how to like skim until you find a piece of valuable information. Um,
for sure.
yeah, so I was just thinking about that.
Yep, I think that's interesting take. I agree. I agree.
Yep. And then one more thing, and then we can move on. Boredom equals creativity. I think the more bored you are, this has been proven by the way in studies, not just I think.
Huh.
So
Okay.
the more time you are bored, the more your creativity increases. And so people, super easy these days when you're always on your phone, it actually kills your creativity. And so what you
Mm,
need is some space. Like that's why people say, hey, or Andrew Huberman Lab, he's always like, okay, give yourself some time in the morning. Don't go on your phone because one, that's when your brain's the most moldable, but also like you need that time to be creative. And so if you're standing in line, and you're bored, maybe it's good to be bored because you're gonna
yep.
start thinking random things that you wouldn't think otherwise. And so you need some time to try to break out of the box of our usual society. So
Yep, dude, 100%. Yeah, I agree. It's like think about like when you're a kid and you didn't have any technology. Or at least I didn't when I was young. I didn't have any technology. I didn't have an
yeah,
Xbox. Like I had literally nothing. And yeah, I was bored every single day of my life, like, Mom, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. And that's when you're at your most creative peak, hey? Like you got imaginary friends, like you play imaginary games, like
Yep.
you get with your siblings and you make up games, like yeah, you're
Hmm.
extremely creative as a kid. And I think it's important to try and stay in that same mindset.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's go back to this mistake stock, and then we can go to one of your
Cool.
topics. So this is something that I created when I just wanted to. I don't know. I think I did something dumb, and I was like, man, it'd be great if I could write this down and have a place so that I wouldn't do this again. And so right now, I think I have, I don't know, maybe 15 different things, and I'm not going to share all of them because they're pretty. Some of them are kind of private, but basically the idea is anytime you make a mistake, like a notable mistake, it's not like, oh, I dropped my water, and I broke the glass or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's like, okay, I messed up negotiating with my boss. This is what I should have done. This is the lesson that I learned. And then I think this is really good because each time I make a new mistake, I go back on here, I add it, but I also look back at all the other mistakes. And so it's this constant reminder, like, hey, you know, uh, what is it like? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Right?
Yep,
That's kind of the
yep.
idea. But I don't know. I think this is kind of a cool idea. I'm curious to see how this goes over the years. But do you have any thoughts?
Dude, that's awesome. Where did you just come up with that yourself, or did you read
Yeah,
that
I just came
somewhere?
up with it. Yeah,
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I'm gonna do that too. That's a great idea.
yeah,
And hopefully we'll also just like eliminate repetitive mistakes, which I think we all
exactly,
make.
exactly. Yeah, like today, I had to get my passport renewed, and I went into the office, and I had everything perfectly. I spent like 2 hours getting everything together that I needed, like going out, getting whatever. And I get inside, and she's like, "Okay, like you got everything. Good job. It's gonna cost $165. Do you want to do cash or card?" And I was like, "Shoot, like
Did you forget
I
your
don't have
wallet?
any cards. I didn't have any cash. No." And so she's like, "Hey, whatever. Go find this. Um, go over here and go to the ATM, and you can come back in." And I realized, like, as I was standing in front of the ATM, um, I had two credit cards in my backpack, but I had to leave the backpack at the front. And so, anyways, lesson learned here is make sure you have the checklist and make sure you have everything like actually with you in your pocket. Because
Yep,
when you're in these kind of high stress situations, anyways, all sorts of things. But
for sure.
random lesson and example of what would go in my mistake doc.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep, cool.
Let's jump over to Craigslist.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
This was kind of circulating Twitter this week. I don't know if you saw this, but
No,
so Craigslist has 50 employees and they
okay,
do over $1 billion a year in revenue.
crazy.
I think I can stop there. Like that's insane. That's nuts.
What's don't do public math, but what is that per employee?
Come on, you just asked me to do public math.
I don't know, it's a lot.
uh,
Wait,
that's a
this is
lot.
a short tangent, but two like big AI companies got bought. Neither of them had products; they were just doing research, and both of them, their value was equivalent to $2 million per employee. So I thought that was pretty
Wow.
interesting. Like essentially, a really good AI engineer with a lot of experience is worth $2 million. All they were paying
Wow.
these people for, like buying the companies, was for their knowledge. So, anyways,
Yeah,
keep going.
that's interesting. So, hey, have you used Craigslist before?
I have maybe gone on it. I've never bought anything from it.
Okay, click on the. So I have a link on that page there.
Okay.
Go to that link. Yep. So Craigslist, yeah, you nailed it. Craigslist founded in 1995. Like, would not be
Looks like it hasn't
surprised
been
if their site
updated
has
since
not changed.
1995.
Yeah, it hasn't
Yeah.
been updated since then.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, really super interesting company. So it's available in 70 countries, and basically, like, short rundown, people and businesses can list their items in like their local market. So think eBay, but local. The
Okay.
different like the major differentiator is they don't take any transactions to their site, which is actually a huge benefit because there's no liability. So hence why
Okay.
they have 50 employees. All
Hmm.
contact is also done outside of their site, so it's not like
Wow.
there's no messaging feature or anything. Like when you post an item, you post your phone
Huh.
number or email, and you contact the person through there.
Interesting.
Uh, they get over 500 million visitors. So
Wow.
that's not like site visits, that's individual visitors. So
Yeah.
nuts. Um, okay, so how do they make money? Posting fees. So they do posting fees for like
Really.
just a few like different categories. It ranges from like $3 to $75, but most of them are pretty low. So job
Okay.
postings are the most expensive, 10
Mm.
to 75 bucks. Apartment rentals in like major cities are $5,
Wow.
and anything for sale by a dealer is like $3 to $5. So that's like kind of the rundown. Although,
Okay.
so it's funny. I worked for a company that sold TVs and electronics in high school. We
Mm.
used Craigslist ads. Like that was one of our
Wow.
major like selling funnels. Really effective. And we just would say that we were like an individual person, not a dealer, and never paid fees.
Huh.
So there's lots of workarounds, but like because they don't enforce it, they don't need to hire employees. So I think that's like, probably their biggest strong suit.
Do
Um,
they have ads?
I don't think they have ads. You can go look.
Okay.
Maybe you can pay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just super curious. Like, how the heck are they getting $1 billion a year off of listing fees? Like that is insane. Even if they have a ton of traffic, that's absolutely crazy. Like that's
Yeah,
mind
it
blowing.
it is insane. You can pay to sponsor. You can also pay to sponsor your like posting, like have it rank at
Okay.
the top of the page. But yeah, it's pretty mind blowing.
Wow.
But it makes sense. I think what it is like, founded in 1995. This is just a name that people know. Like everyone and their moms know what Craigslist is. And
Yep.
so if you're like looking for something, like just like a basic household item, looking to get rid of things, like one of the first things that pops in your head is Craigslist. Hence why they have 500 million visitors a month. And so I think just like, yeah, obviously those listing fees are minimal, but the sheer size of that, if you've got 500 plus million individual visitors, like
Hmm.
quite a few of them are listing things, and say 10% of them are paying a listing fee, like that is a substantial amount of money.
Yeah, I'm just blown away by like the durability of this company over time. Like, my gosh, you would have think like OfferUp or Letgo or one of these companies would have came along and st stolen all the revenue, like Facebook Marketplace. Um, I mean, Craigslist easily could have bought and purchased OfferUp with the amount that they're
Yep.
doing in revenue, and no, somehow these guys are just like whatever, and it's still
Yep.
printing money, and that blows
Yeah.
my mind. I'm sure
It's pretty crazy.
profit margins are pretty high on this too. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
wow, go
Question
for
for
it.
you on this. Do you
Yep.
think this can be replicated? So like, yeah, like you're saying you would think somebody would have come in by now and like demolished them. Do you think that's an
Hmm.
opportunity?
Dude, I mean, what I know for sure is marketplaces are a super hard business to start because you need to sell the seller and you need to get the buyer and you need to get them both and
Yep.
you need to get the proper amount. Um, I don't know. People have tried, right? Like OfferUp, their business model is completely free to transact, message in the app, but we're gonna show you a ton of ads. And I think they're doing pretty well. I don't
Yep.
doubt anywhere near this. I just
Yeah.
can't see
No.
like, yeah, like this is for old people, right? Like Craigslist, old people would know this too. So I think that's a huge selling point. Like
Yeah.
old people, love to give away stuff or whatever. Um, drives a lot of
Yep.
traffic. So I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
see
dude,
a
I
way
I use
to
Craigslist.
replicate. Yeah, you do. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah. I'm not sure. Part of me does think there's a way to replicate because I think their main differentiator is they don't have many employees and there's no liability. They don't take payments to their platform. Like it's not complex. Like yeah, you're right. Like the hard part about starting a marketplace is convincing the buyer and the seller to come in. So how do you do that? You charge fees to nobody. Like it's a win-win. You charge no fees. All communication is done outside the app. And so like both parties are saving money. And I really, I don't know. Part of me thinks that
Hmm.
if you like really nail that and are willing to take a hit for a little bit, because if you're not taking fees, you're not going to be making money. You're going to take a hit
Yeah.
for a while. But if you're willing to do that, I think if you make a
Hmm.
good looking app that's free, I think it'll gain traffic through the right marketing, and I think you could kill it.
Okay. A couple thoughts. First, like Craigslist is not even an app. I don't think it's literally just a website. So
They
that's
do have
actually
they do have
incredible.
an app. They do
They do
have
have
an
an app.
app, but
Okay.
like no one
Okay.
really uses it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Scratch that. But the other thing I was going to say is if you already have distribution, so if you're a creator and you have a ton of followers, I think it could work. The issue is that most of the big creators, their following's all young, and so then you're going to be kind of portrayed as like, oh, the young. I don't know, call it Jerry's List. No, call it a Logan's List or something like that. I don't know,
Yeah.
some young
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Like I just this really shows to me like the value of a brand name.
Yep. Yes.
Like
Yes.
it has incredible power to yeah, crazy. Okay, I want to talk about the Billy of the week.
Ooh.
Cue the music that we don't have yet. Um, all right. I don't so don't open it yet. I
Yeah.
want
I've been
you.
waiting all week.
Okay. I want you to guess who has the biggest car collection in the world.
I mean, dude, I have no Bill Gates. Like I
Th
don't know.
no, throw out some things like what area of the world? Maybe like, is this a
I would guess Saudi
celebrity?
Arabia.
Okay, okay,
Saudi, like oil money.
good guess. Close. Any other
Okay.
guesses?
India.
Okay, you're along the right track.
Okay.
So the answer is it's you can open it up. So the country is Brunei. So this is the Sultan of Brunei. Meet
Wow.
Hassanal Bolkiah, as far as I can tell. So there's a picture. Can you kind of describe what he looks like for all the listeners?
Hey, I think it's like a private page, so I can't open
Oh
it.
shoot. Okay, so I'll describe him. So
Okay.
anyways, if you don't know where Brunei is, it's in Malaysia, Indonesia area. Um, he looks like kind of like he would be from there. He's got kind of big ears, got like a pretty kind of like narrow like eyes. Like you can tell he has bright eyes. He looks like he's pretty smart. Got a like goatee going on. Um, Let me give you a couple details. So he's the Sultan and the Prime Minister of Brunei since the day that they gained their independence from the UK in 1984. So I thought this was hilarious. He just had his golden jubilee. Do you know who has a golden jubilee? Queen Elizabeth. She had her golden jubilee and her diamond jubilee. I think she had.
Okay.
Um, so I think it's hilarious. Like I've always associated jubilees with the Queen of England, but this guy had a golden jubilee in 2017.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
so he's been around for more than 50 years. Let me just give you some the quick history. So he 100 years ago, less than 100 years ago, this country was poor. It was terribly poor. There was no one wanted anything to do with it. Like it was still under rule of Britain and whoever else was there. Um, and then all of a sudden they found a ton of crude oil and natural gas, and so they started exporting it.
Mm.
And so his current net worth, this one guy, is valued between 20 and 30 billion. So he's one of the world's richest persons. At one point, he was the world's richest person. Um, he is one of only six remaining absolute monarchies in the whole world.
Wow.
A couple funny things. He banned Christmas lights. And he's moving closer to the rules of some religion that includes rules like stoning people. That kind of brings up the question of um, do his people like him? And what it came to is I started looking up, is this guy a philanthropist? Because I saw like one thing like, oh, this guy's a philanthropist, but it was on like one of those celebrity pages where it's like it looks like it's written by like a robot or someone in China.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I was trying to figure out, what do his people think about him, and is he a philanthropist? I could not find a single thing. And so what I'm thinking is either this guy is a genius and somehow figured out to like cover all his things up, or maybe he is clearly he's not that great of a guy if he's not known for being a philanthropist. And there's
Yeah,
no
yeah.
I couldn't find anything one way or another about what his subjects think about him. Um,
Wow.
so that was pretty interesting. And then so he has the largest car collection in the world. It is 7,000 cars. So he has 450 Ferraris, almost 400 Bentleys, 600 plus Rolls Royces. Just insane. He loves gold. He's obsessed with gold. He has a pure gold sink. He
That is
flies
hilarious.
his barber from the UK to Brunei. I think the barber said something like 20 it costs like 20,000 each time, but
Oh
between
my
all the
gosh.
treatment, what he pays him and the flights.
Yeah.
Um, and he actually has the largest residential palace in the Guinness Book of World Record, which cost
Wow.
$1.4 billion to build. Like
That's nuts.
let me just say $1.4 billion to build this palace.
Yeah, that's insane.
It has 1,700 rooms. 1,700 rooms.
Okay.
Um, and just kind of why I thought this guy was so cool is like, what the heck? This is a super tiny country, by the way. If you look up on a map, super small.
Yeah, yeah.
From 1929, so within 100 years, this whole country and built this incredible fortune. And this guy figured out how to get like all of it. Like this guy got pretty much all of the money, right? Like he's the
Wow.
absolute monarch. He's the sultan, whatever. He rules this whole
Yeah.
thing. He gets all the money. He's living the best that you could ever possibly want. So
Yeah.
I just thought this guy was super impressive. And then my question to you is like, what are your thoughts on the Middle Eastern kind of dynasties? Like, there's this guy, like Saudi Arabia. I think I don't know the details, but there's lots of like, you know, that's the monarchies I think are generally going to be in this area of like South Asia or the Middle East, and it kind of reminds me of back in like Chinese dynasties were a huge thing, right?
Yep.
And those
Yep.
those don't exist anymore. But it seems like they're still going in a couple of these
Yeah.
countries, which I think is pretty cool. But what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, dude, this is crazy. This is so interesting. It feels like um it feels like a ancient dynasty, but with like today's resources.
Yeah.
And yeah, these guys are, you know, living a video game life. Like that is just hilarious. Like flies barber to UK, has over 7,000 cars,
Yeah.
which assume each of those cars has like a $200,000 value. That's $1 billion worth of
Oh,
cars.
yeah, yeah. By the way, I forgot to mention the value of all of his cars is like I think it was 1.8 billion that all of his cars are
That's
valued at.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's nuts. So
crazy.
yeah, this guy like banned Christmas lights in the country. Yeah, like he's just like playing a game. It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Middle Eastern dynasties kind of blow my mind because you think of like the Middle East kind of as like a very like poor, like rough place to live. But then
Yep.
you've got this like select elite group of people who are just living it up, and
Hmm.
it's like kind of sad. It's kind of sad actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super interesting. Good find.
Yeah. Thanks.
So
Okay.
Chegg is technically like an ed tech company, but really they make money by just offering college students test and homework answers on demand.
Mm. Okay.
So pretty pretty like unique business. Uh, so basically, college students can pay $15 a month to get access to over like 50 million answered exam and homework problems. Um,
Okay.
but they like also can submit their current homework problems and have them answered. So okay, how do they do this in a high volume like that? So based in California, but the majority of their operation is actually based in India. So in
Wow.
India, they employ over 70,000 experts that are like individual
70,000.
contractors.
Oh my gosh.
70,000. Yep. And all these experts have like advanced degrees in math, science, tech, engineering, and they're available 24/7. So subscribers can post their homework and literally get like a very technical, like in-depth answer to their question in like 15, literally 15 minutes by one of these experts. I kind of questioned like the validity of
Yeah.
like the experts. So I looked into it. I actually looked in like how to become like how do I apply to become a Czech
Yeah.
tutor because I wanted to become one, like using AI. And it's way more challenging than I thought. Like you have to undergo a multiple like a series of tests to
Wow.
answer questions to, like a specific field. So like you can't just be like finance or economics or whatever. It's got to be like a very specific like
Ah,
niche in
got it.
economics. And yeah, you can only be an expert in like that one field. Um, so how do you keep them incentivized? When experts post an answer, they make students can like rate that answer with a thumbs up or thumbs down. The more
Okay.
thumbs up you get, you make more money, and
Okay.
you're given more questions to answer. So
Wow.
you're like really incentivized to give quality responses.
Yeah.
Um, they have a
Wow.
couple other services they make money from. They have a they. I was looking through like the companies they own. They've acquired a
Huh.
bunch of like citation websites. So bibme.org, Cite This For Me, EasyBib. Do you use any of those?
Yeah. Easy bib. Yeah.
Yeah, easy. Yeah. So they've acquired like all the big ones.
Wow.
They make a little bit of money through that, but this is kind of crazy. Peak of the pandemic, their market cap hit over 12 billion,
Wow.
which is
Wow.
crazy. Makes sense. Makes sense though. Like everybody's at home, like obviously wanting to cheat on their homework. But since has dropped back down to 2.5 billion, which feels like a missed opportunity. Like obviously it was going to go back down. That would have been a good shorting opportunity.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so here's what I think
So,
is interesting.
wait,
They're
is
kind
this a
of
publicly traded company?
yeah, publicly traded.
Wow.
Yeah, which
Wow.
I didn't know until I dove in a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think they're kind of in an interesting spot right now, and I kind of want to get your thoughts. So
Yeah.
obviously they've got a pretty cool model. It's like proven. They've already got so many answers that like very few. They don't need to hire as many employees now because they've
Hmm.
answered the majority of questions that have been posted. So they're at a good spot. But
Okay.
I think they're going to get screwed by AI.
Yeah.
Like
I was.
I, yeah, like I think they honestly could become completely irrelevant and just tank. Uh, because well, like now you can actually have like a solid amount of questions answered with like pretty good accuracy.
Yep.
And I think pretty soon you'll be able to ask AI any question with 100% accuracy, even technical questions.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, it's obviously unfortunate for them because I think they were kind of in a position to start skyrocketing again. Um, but yeah, I do think it's kind of the end of Chegg. So I honestly now might be the opportunity to short.
Ah, yeah, well, this is crazy. 70,000 people all in India. That's insane. And yeah, I think they're screwed. I honestly though, I have to say, I would not be surprised if they had something going on internally with AI. So
Mm,
I think that's the one hope for them that they already have something going on with AI.
yep.
Um, or maybe they're they're like, screw it, let's just hope that we stay around. Like it's a recognizable name.
Yep.
I think worst case they can acquire someone maybe is
Yep.
my guess. Like if some yeah, like you said, they've already acquired some other companies, and so if someone shoots up and it's like, hey, we're the AI study helpers, they can acquire them. Um,
For sure.
I am super super surprised. I always thought like Chegg was kind of underground. Like yeah, all the kids knew
Mm.
about it, but it's publicly traded. Like what?
Yeah, it's
Like
publicly traded.
don't don't people know that this is how kids, like cheat their way through school? Like
Dude,
how
100%.
how the heck is this like allowed? I'm actually that's literally what this is. Like you can't deny it.
Yeah.
This is a website for people who want to cheat and
Oh yeah.
very little else. And I'm really surprised that the government is okay with this and is uh allowing this to wow. I'm surprised.
Dude, me too. I think it's hilarious. I was reading through some interviews with executives
Hmm.
and they're like heavily questioned like what use case other than cheating does Chegg offer? And they're like their responses are hilarious. Like
Yeah.
one of the responses was like our purpose is to help students get unstuck. Like that was literally the response. Just like, what? That's just cheating. Like
Oh
that's
jeez.
one, that's a horrible that's a horrible response. Get them
Yeah.
unstuck, like help students not think through a problem. Yeah, but they've received tons of scrutiny, and
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
with you. I can't believe there's not regulations around this.
Yeah, that's crazy. It reminds me of Nikita Beer. Do you know who that is? In Gas App. Have you
Yeah,
heard of any of these?
yep,
Yep. So you kind of know the story. Basically, Gas App is like this huge app that went viral for kids in high school, and this guy who previously had created another app that went viral for kids, so he did it again after 3 years. Um, and he was being interviewed by someone on like the news, I don't know, CNN or something like that, and they were asking him like why do you do this? Like what's your motivation? He was like, "Oh, I just really love making kids feel good about themselves. Like we got a message the other day like, "Oh, you really like saved my life and stuff something like this." And then like on screen behind him is showing something like, "Who is the ugliest in your class?" Like yeah,
yeah, yeah,
answer this poll. And that's what it
uh,
reminds me of. Just yeah, complete flop on the interview.
just
That's really funny.
straight lying. Like
Yeah.
just yeah, it's hilarious.
This is a good find though. I like this. I would, yeah, I think unless Chegg makes some acquisitions, which I hope they do for the size they are and for the amount of success, like that'd be terrible to just see them disappear. Like that's, so many people know who they are and know their name. But
Yep.
yeah, I think you could start them and there's a chance to make some money. So
Yeah,
good,
since
nice
I wrote
catch.
this, I've thought about it. I don't see them skyrocketing. Like I don't see their value going up
Yeah. Yep.
really. So I don't know how much risk there is.
Hmm.
Hey, another like interesting opportunity that I maybe want to get your thoughts on.
Yep.
So, did you see Microsoft acquired like a 49% stake in OpenAI?
Yeah, I saw.
Um, Dude, like a 49% stake in OpenAI feels extremely substantial to me. Like, like I know OpenAI doesn't have an extremely high valuation right now. I mean, it's high. It's like I think it's what is it, 30 billion, maybe
Yeah.
more. But I think they have like they're fairly new, and I think it has the
Oh
opportunity
yeah.
to be upwards of like $1 trillion valuation. um,
Mm,
which even for a company of Microsoft's size is a huge deal. And I think
yeah.
that's like a cool investment opportunity. Like I think putting money into Microsoft is a fairly good idea right now,
Ah.
just because of that one asset.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I hadn't thought about that because I heard about the sale or the purchase too. Um, hmm, I really like that. I hmm, I'm gonna think about that one. We
Yep.
should talk about it next week.